sticking with my theme of all things 2026, as I promised you. It's a top five. It's time. It's Wednesday, which means I have a new top five list, and it's an update, right? A month ago, I debuted my top five most likely governor's seats to flip parties. And at that time, this was October, which meant the Virginia and New Jersey races were part of my top five. And just to recount, my top five in October of races most likely to change of governor's seats or governor's mansions, however you want to describe it, most likely to flip parties. Number one was Virginia. Number two was Kansas. Number three was Wisconsin. Number four was Michigan. And number five was Iowa. Now, what do all five of those races have in common? They're all open seats. And as I will say every time I talk about governor's races, one of the hardest things to do in politics is to defeat a sitting governor after they've served only one term. It just rarely happens. Frank Murkowski is one of the few examples where it happened when Sarah Palin defeated Lisa Murkowski's father in a primary after he had served one term. But it is not easy. Joe Lombardo defeated Governor Sisolak Steve Sisolak out of Nevada in 2022. Not the easiest thing to defeat a sitting, I think he was the only incumbent to lose statewide on the Democratic side in 2022, Senate or governor. So that is it. That is just how difficult it is. Voters in general, unless they really can't stand their governor and they do something sort of something that they never thought that they would do. And in Sisolak's case, he shut down the Strip, right? That's why he lost re-election. He shut the Strip down during COVID, and that had all sorts of massive economic fallout for Nevada residents, which explains the point is my top five list will likely not include a sitting governor. In fact, I think if you're wondering which incumbent governor is the most vulnerable in the country, I will tell you it is Katie Hobbs in Arizona. Of all the incumbent governors seeking re-election, she's probably at the most vulnerable. She narrowly won over Kari Lake the first time. She's not the most front-facing candidate. She is. There isn't going to be a Senate race that becomes the bigger attention seeker. Her race is going to be the front and center race in swing state Arizona. And if Congressman David Schweikert, who has represented a swing district in Arizona, ends up the Republican nominee, I think she's in for a real nail biter. So I will say she does not make my top five at the moment of five most vulnerable to flip, because I will tell you, there's a whole bunch more open seats that are more likely to flip parties first before we get to Arizona. But if you told me sometime between now and next November, Arizona makes it into my top five, it would be the one state with an incumbent governor that I think that it's likely to do that. So with that said, my top five, number one now, and I think it's fair to put this, it's Kansas. Now, it's interesting. I have a little update on Kansas. Laura Kelly, who's term limited, and it is worth noting that Democrats have had the governor's office 16 of the last 24 years. Right? You had Kathleen Sebelius. Then you had your 8 years of Brownback, and then you had 8 years of Laura Kelly. Now she has endorsed her successor, a state senator by the name of Ethan Carson. Ethan Corson, Corson. My apologies there. She claims that he's going to be that he's the Democrat. Now he's in a primary, but that he's the Democrat best positioned to continue to appeal to sort of moderate Republicans and independents, which is what Laura Kelly has successfully done in order to win in Kansas. We'll see. Kathleen Sebelius had her own successor, and that person couldn't win. So, look, I do think you're likely to see the windshield wiper effect take place in Kansas, which is why you've got to make it's somewhat of a crowded Republican primary. But I think it's fair to put that you got to put that seat is most likely to flip at the moment, right? It's the most Republican state with a Democratic open seat. in all of the governor's races. So because of that, I think you have to put Kansas in the one spot.
There's a reason results matter more than promises. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan has become America's largest injury law firm. For the last 35 years, they've recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. It includes cases where insurance companies offered next to nothing, short of shortchanging, seeing if they could get away with it. And Morgan & Morgan fought back, and they won millions. In Pennsylvania, one client was awarded $26 million. It was a staggering 40 times the amount that the insurance company originally offered. That offer, $650,000, whatever it took to sort of get away without paying. So with more than 1,000 lawyers across the country, Morgan & Morgan knows how to deliver for everyday people. So if you're injured, you're looking for a lawyer, check out forthepeople.com/ToddCast or dial pound law, pound 529 on your cell phone. And remember, all law firms are not the same. So give Morgan & Morgan a look. Their fee is free unless they win.
So number two, last month, I had it at number three. I am putting it at number two. I mean, the fact is the Democrats are in the tougher position in this three-way race, right? If Duggan catches fire, it's at the expense of the Democrats. If Duggan doesn't catch fire but still gets low double digits, it's at the expense of the Democrat. So there are not a ton of scenarios that give, in this case, that put the advantage in the Democrats column here on this one. So I think you have to put, if I've got Kansas in the number one slot, I think you have to put Michigan as the second most likely state not to have a the same party succeed the incumbent party, in this case, the Democrats. Look, I will continue to say that I think the state of Michigan is the single most important set of primaries. That Democratic primary in the Senate campaign is going to be just what direction does the party go in that Senate race? If you have a progressive like Abdul Sayed who ends up not just the nominee but wins that Senate seat, it will help set the tone of what the primary debate about Israel looks like in the Democratic presidential primaries. The point is, boy, what happens in Michigan, this three-way governor's race in a general election, that Democratic primary and Senate race, it's just so many. If you're a serious political reporter and you want to make a name for yourself, plant yourself in the state of Michigan. Anyway, so Michigan in my number two slot. Look, in the number three right now, I'm going to put battleground state Georgia. And this is the new entry into my top five list. And the case I'm making on why Georgia now is here is what happened in the off year elections. I think it's the same reason why I dropped Ossoff down the list of Senate seats most likely to flip in our last top five, and why I rise the Georgia governor's race. Look, I thought this would be a competitive race, but slight advantage to the Republicans. But what happened in those Public Service Commission races where Democrats won by double digits? And if you've got a turnout and you've got a weak Senate field, you've got a well-funded incumbent candidate in John Ossoff, you have a very competent potential gubernatorial nominee in Keisha Lance Bottoms, and she is, I think, very electable statewide. Was not somebody that alienated the business community as mayor of Atlanta. So you put this combination up there, and suddenly I just feel a lot more bullish about Democrats in general and their chances in Georgia right now than I've had in a while, even more so than the success the Democrats had in the 2020 campaign, right? Sort of the most successful year that they've ever had in Georgia this century, where they carried the presidency and won 2 Senate seats thanks to runoffs. By the way, considering that we're going to have super competitive races and the likelihood there'll be some libertarian candidate on the ballot, the likelihood we have runoff somewhere in Georgia in December of 2026 is probably higher than any of us want to contemplate at this moment. But just put that in the back of your memory bank that is coming. So number 1, Kansas. Number 2, Michigan. Number 3, Georgia. In the 4 spot, I got to put Wisconsin, pretty much for the same reason why Michigan is there, why Kansas is there. This is an open seat. Wisconsin's been a bit of a windshield wiper, at least in the 21st century. 8 years in one party, 8 years in the other, and here we go again. Um, for Democrats, will the national wind blowing at their back allow them to overcome what could be a state wind blowing in their face? Well, it didn't hurt Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, right? Where where you had an outgoing governor that wasn't super popular. He wasn't super unpopular either, but he was sort of middling, if you will. He certainly had a lower job rating than Glenn Youngkin had in Virginia. Um, and so you just due to the swingy nature of Wisconsin, you got to put that in the 4 slot. And in the 5 slot, I'm going to keep the same. And it's simply because Democrats have their candidate and Republicans don't yet, because there's going to be a competitive primary, and that's Iowa. And you have the Democratic candidate, Rob Sand. You just got to know Josh Turek a little bit. Um, it does appear as if the sort of populist, sort of more culturally conservative, but economic populist wing of the Democratic Party is flexing its muscle in Iowa. If that is if you see that sort of uh, if that is the unofficial ticket that is leading statewide in Iowa, that puts them in a strong position. And I happen to believe Iowa is a lot more winnable for Democrats than Ohio is, even though I suspect the Ohio governor's race to be quite close. We're still waiting for Tim Ryan to make a decision on that one. I'm not ready to put Ohio in any top 5 list on that front. Um, but I am with Iowa. So to recap, my top 5 for this month of the 5 governor's mansions most likely to flip: Kansas 1, Michigan 2, Georgia 3, Wisconsin 4, Iowa 5. And I think when you look at that, it's 3 Republican held seats, 2 Democratic held seats. No, excuse me, 3 Democratic held seats, 2 Republican held seats. Um, I think it's because you've seen Democrats had some good success in 2018 winning in some light red states. Now, and in the swing states, they're about to give that, now those folks are term limited, and the party is lucking out that it's likely they'll have the wind at their back. So one would assume they hold at least 2 of those 3 important Midwestern and states that they want to hold: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. By the way, in case you're wondering, the following races I contemplated for this top 5 list. I told you about Arizona. I think Katie Hobbs is the most vulnerable incumbent in the country. But again, I have my caveats there. The hardest thing to do in politics, other than oust a sitting 1-term president, is to oust a sitting 1-term governor. Other seats that I are in my competitive category that I did contemplate for this top 5: Maine, an open seat there; Nevada, Joe Lombardo, the sitting, he just won. This is a swingy state. We'll see. I think Lombardo's in pretty good shape for reelection, but it's going to be tight, and he certainly is running a bit against we think it's going to be a breeze against him. Ohio, and the open seat in Alaska. But until we find out the full field in Alaska, what does Mary Patello do? Before I'm willing to put Alaska truly in the very, very competitive column. So there you go, my top 5 list this week.